Story 1. Local governments now live stream their meetings more often. They started doing it during the pandemic so they could still be open and transparent. And since they spent all that money upgrading their information technology to do it, they just kept doing it. Since that includes citizens now being able to address their town councils over video conferencing, it has made it a lot easier for people to participate in their local government. Story 2. Business hours. For example, a local grocery store near me used to be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but is now open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. They also do all of their restocking of shelves during the day instead of additionally having a dedicated night crew for that. Not necessarily a bad change, but a sign of the times of watching costs more closely. Story 3. Used car prices. This situation is insane. I need to buy my daughter a car, so I can have mine back, but I can't in good conscience spend $10,000 on a car with 150,000 miles on it. Story 4. Travel destinations have deteriorated. Many people were let go during the pandemic, and my theory is that they never rehired as many individuals to return. The people they have rehired are less well-trained. The result is worse service, worse food, and less clean establishments, among other issues. Travel has also become much more expensive now. People are now paying a lot more for a lesser experience. Story 5. Intentional understaffing of stores and businesses and limited hours of operation. There's a bank branch near me that is still only open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Story 6. Huge truancy problem. Montgomery County in Maryland is very rich, and right next to Washington, D.C. truancy is over 20%. Prince George's County next door has fewer resources. It's at 30%. These kids are our future. Story 7. People being unpleasant to healthcare staff. The way that people talk to my staff, myself, and my colleagues is so much more antagonistic and combative compared to before COVID-19 that I don't recommend prospective students go into healthcare anymore. Story 8. Lots of places are still offering free curbside pickup, which is nice. The less I'm physically inside the grocery store, the less I get tempted to buy stuff I don't need. Story 9. In my line of work, in job interviews, we've gone from we might offer remote work as a benefit, depending on your performance, to remote work is of course part of the package. Story 10. In Canada, the Canadian government allowed a lot, and I do mean a lot, of temporary foreign workers into Canada, and they were expedited through without any real background checks. This is apparently rapidly changing, as the Canadian government released a statement that said they were lowering the amount of temporary foreign workers coming into Canada. But, you know, it's bad when the United Nations calls out Canada's temporary foreign worker program as being modern slavery. Story 11. Everyone finds things dissatisfying and everything is excessively costly. I understand that the excessively costly part came later. Most, if not all, restaurants are completely disappointing and offer less food for more money. People have lost all respect for each other, and it's just sad. Story 12. I have become more jaded and pessimistic with everyone and nearly everything. I have also reached the point where I am immediately annoyed by others' nonsense. I do not like what I have become. Story 13. Reduced Facebook traffic. People are not posting as much anymore on any of the groups I am on, nor are they posting statuses as much. To be fair, the latter has been happening before the pandemic. The more active users have become older as well. Story 14. Pricing. Once businesses increased prices due to COVID, they never lowered them again. People say inflation is at normal levels, but forget to look at where prices are compared to before the pandemic, especially when most people's wages are still at pre-pandemic levels. Story 15. Hotels no longer service your room when you stay more than one night. I really do not need someone changing my sheets and towels every night, but at least have someone replace the coffee pods and bring extra shampoo and soap. Sometimes it is also nice when they empty the waste bins. It does irk me when I am paying $400 a night and have to go stand in line at reception to get more coffee pods. If they do not plan to service my room for the rest of my stay, why do not they leave extra coffee pods to begin with? If they are going to give me less service for the nights after my first night, they should be giving me a reduced rate on those nights, in my opinion. Sure, you can request that they service your room every night, but it is annoying that the default is now that your room does not get serviced unless you ask for it. Story 16, price gouging. Paper towels should not be so expensive. It's just paper, and that's just one thing. Every item is so much more expensive than before COVID-19. Story 17, skeleton crews. Companies have realized that they can manage with a small group and work them excessively. I feel very sorry whenever the Dollar General near me has to close early because they have no one to run the store, or the local Domino's that sometimes has only one person working. Story 18, everything being gig and the expectations of customers to close salary cost of living gaps with tips and being overcharged for the simplest of services. Story 19, I could really say any 24-hour shopping. I miss it not just for the security of knowing I can go to Walmart at any time if I need something late at night for my child, but also, I truly cannot stand that now restocking is done throughout the entire day instead of with the night shift. It is pretty much impossible to go to Walmart now without getting into shopping cart traffic jams because there are gigantic restocking carts on every single aisle being pushed around by employees. I know it's not the employee's fault, but it's incredibly annoying. Story 20, Department of Motor Vehicles appointments. This probably varies by state, but where I live, they introduced them over the pandemic, and honestly, it has made a world of difference in the overall experience. No longer waiting for your number to be called for hours because a bunch of people brought the wrong paperwork. Story 21. A lot of businesses kept their COVID hours and never stay open late anymore, namely bars and restaurants. My town used to have such a fun nightlife, and now it's a ghost town on any weekend late night, save for one random place where everyone is hurrying to. Story 22. My mental health is taking a nosedive. It feels like I'm still not even close to where I was before the pandemic in terms of anxiety, depression, and general outlook on life. Story 23. A lot of 24-hour businesses like diners here in New Jersey are no longer open 24 hours anymore. My state used to have the reputation of having a ton of 24-hour diners, but right now, that's not the case. When my husband got sick and needed Miralax to help his stomach, I was surprised to find out from my brother-in-law that there was a 24-hour Walgreens nearby. I had to drive out at 2 a.m. to get him medicine. It was quite convenient. Story 24. The workload increase on essential retail staff was realized during lockdowns and furlough in the United Kingdom. Especially, they can maintain the same workload with fewer staff, and so they have just been reducing staffing levels since, adding all that pressure on fewer staff. Burnout is increasing across the board. Story 25. I still see individuals in everyday life who wear masks, and no one cares about it. Before the pandemic, you would have gotten weird looks as if something was wrong with you. The Gamescom in Germany was held last week, and I heard from so many people that they came home with corona. People underestimate how much it still exists. Story 26. It is still happening. Maybe not reported, but certainly in Japan, where I live, there is a high intake of hospitalizations and restrictions in clinics. Masks, heat scans, and hand sanitization are still in place. Also, in the United Kingdom, hospitals are still working on some protocols set in place during the first 24 months of the pandemic. It is endemic in the population. Even if it was not, there is a currency in a lot of the services and procedures that were put in place. Public health is always profitable. Also, flights are much more expensive because there are fewer planes in the air. Story 27. It was never a great experience going to Walmart, but it is significantly worse now. Walmart never went back to 24 hours. They used to employ people on overnight shifts, and they would stock overnight. Now, they just stock all day, every day during business hours. There are pallets of stuff everywhere. Sorry, you can't go to that aisle today. It's completely full of pallets that need to be placed somewhere in the middle of the store. More people order for curbside pickup now. Walmart employees will run into you with their carts as they fill orders or aggressively reach in front of you to get to things on their list. They have no regard for how rude they are being. Other shoppers do not ignore that there are people around them in the same way that Walmart employees do. Walmart employees won't make eye contact as they run you down. I have multiple Walmarts near me, and it is the same experience at every single store. Story 28. With over 1 million new cases a day in the United States and a death toll in August estimated between 4,000 to 5,000, the pandemic is still in full swing. Counties have had to close schools already due to levels of COVID illness. Long COVID is now recognized as a leading disability. Politicians and corporations want to pretend it no longer exists for their benefits, but the stats don't lie. Story 29. Skeleton staffing, especially in restaurants and fast food establishments, is a notable issue. I have not visited McDonald's since last year, but whenever I went to the ones in town, they always seemed to have around 3 to 5 people on shift, even during rush hours. The staff all seemed very young or new to the country. Obviously, there is nothing inherently wrong with those demographics, exploitation concerns aside, but it lends credence to my theory. When hospitality businesses dismissed all their staff or reduced their pay around the beginning of the pandemic, most of them likely went on to find better jobs and never looked back. I guess they also probably learned that they technically can run on minimal staff, even at the expense of speed and service. Since people's standards for that lowered during the pandemic anyway, now the food isn't fast, it certainly isn't cheap, and by the time it gets to you, it's barely edible either. The offering of McDonald's delivery by Uber Eats doesn't help either, since I think the staff are either told to prioritize those often massive orders or do so subconsciously, since the Uber drivers understandably don't take long to start getting cranky. Just a disaster all around. Also, here in the UK, I am pretty sure general practitioners are still using the pandemic as an excuse to gatekeep ever getting to talk to a doctor. I spent days trying to sort out my antidepressant prescription after a mistake they made, and when I actually got to talk to a doctor in the end, the whole thing took about 2 minutes. Story 30. Walmart not being open 24 hours anymore. I loved going there at night to shop if I couldn't sleep. Now, on nights when my past trauma haunts me and I'm not able to sleep, I have to stay in the house and let the walls close in on me because nothing is open 24 hours anymore. It's rough. Story 31. In-person appointments for many services. I attempted to schedule a follow-up appointment with my dermatologist to avoid taking half a day off work, as finding a substitute can be quite troublesome. However, they did not allow it, unfortunately. Since it was a follow-up for a visit regarding a flare-up of psoriasis, she spent less than 2 minutes in the office examining it. I took half a day off work and drove 1 hour and 10 minutes to the visit from work. And then, it took 1 hour and 20 minutes to drive home. I was very frustrated that it couldn't be a phone call or video appointment. Story 32. The loss of attention span for some people went out the window. I have no idea about the transition, but almost every time I go to the movies, I see someone staring at their phone. The worst was some kid right next to me watching a soccer match with full backlight. Why would you pay $12 to $15 to see a movie and not even watch it? Also, people dress terribly in public. You are not at home. At least try to put in some effort into what you are wearing. I am not even old, but I am with the older generation on this one. More people need to have some self-respect. Story 33. I can't believe it. I still can't get over how my local, huge mall is basically closed by 8 p.m. Back in the day, it used to be open until 10 p.m., and on holidays, it would stay open until 11 p.m. or 12 a.m.